Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church in Eugene, where, empowered by love, we transform ourselves and serve our world. My name is Jennifer Hackett. My pronouns are she and her, and I am delighted to serve as your ministerial intern of this church. With me today is our lead minister, the Reverend Louis Van Leer, our collaborative pianist, Suzanne Giordano, and behind the scenes working tech is the amazing Kat Johnson. Welcome to a new day where we can begin again together. If you're new to UUCE, we'd love to get to know you better, and a visitor form is being dropped into the chat now. Please take a moment after the service to fill it out so that we can reach out to you this week.
Our chalice lighting this morning is entitled Rock Me Mercy by Yusef Komunyaka. I'm going to light the chalice first and then do the reading. If you want to join me at home, you can either light a chalice or hold your hands like this, if you're able. The river stones are listening because we have something to say. The trees lean closer today. The singing in the electrical woods has gone dumb. It looks like rain because it is too warm to snow. Guardian angels, wherever you're hiding, we know you can't be everywhere at once. Have you corralled all the pretty wild horses? The memory of ants asleep in daylilies, roses, holly, and larkspur. The magpies gaze at us, still waiting. Riverstones are listening. But all we can say now is, mercy, please rock me.
Our call to worship today is from the book Be Wild, Be Free by Amber Fossey. We'll be discussing the book a lot throughout the service today. Oh, hello, friend. Do you hear the beasts scratching at the door? They want to be let out, to be wild and free. They were sleeping too long, and now they're getting feisty. Don't be afraid. They're pretty lovely inside. And never did I see a more pretty beast than you. Come into this sacred space we have prepared for you today. You are welcome here, and you belong just as you are, whether that feels beastly or not today. Amanda Gorman, our poet laureate, tells us that our nation isn't broken. It's simply unfinished. We lay down our arms so that we can reach out our arms to one another. Her imagination combined with her eyewitness, her lived reality, created this beautiful gift for us. We thought it was time to hear her message again, and I'm not ready to read her words as well as she did, so we're having her read them to you. I just wanted to remind you or warn you that there will be some swearing in this sermon. Through Kat's magic behind the scenes, you won't hear the words themselves because this is church, people. But the inclusion of them will be important, as you will see. When I was a child, I was told that swearing was unladylike. I was told that it showed no imagination. I was told that I had a great imagination and therefore I had no need of swearing. It was made clear that it was expected of me that I would not be swearing. When one of my children, whose name shall not be named, but who is the eldest, came home from school in the 2nd grade, it seemed that he'd heard some new words on the playground. It was clear he wasn't sure if they were words he was allowed to say or not, so when he decided to try them out at the dinner table, his little high voice got quite low. He waited for an appropriate moment, and there was a story being told at our dinner table, and the right reaction to that story was one of incredulity. So, with his tiny, low voice, he responded with incredulity, trying out the new words while sort of looking at the floor. He said, "What the hell do they think they're f***ing at?" There was so much silence. I could see his little face getting worried that maybe he'd really messed this one up. As the parent who usually does the first round parenting response, I turned to him, held his hand, geared up to parent, and just burst into laughter. I could not stop laughing for several minutes. It was the hearty kind of laughter that just pulls joy up from the inside out. I laughed until tears leaked from my eyes. When I came up for air, I saw that my spouse was looking at me with total frustration. And I was on the receiving end of a look that clearly transmuted the message, "I thought you could handle this." He did not want our 8-year-old swearing like a sailor. And our little boy looked from my tear-stained giggling face to my spouse's frustrated face and had the look of real confusion that comes from watching a parent tennis match. And the words he had tried out were still hanging there in the air like a lead balloon. I pulled myself together and told our child, "Okay, kiddo, there are some things you should know about certain words and what's appropriate for a child to say, and which words you should wait until you are older to say. But the most important message that I have for you today is that in our family, we do not end our sentences in a preposition." And then I was lost again to laughter for 5 more minutes. And this time my little one joined me. Last month I was checking on a neighbor's house who had recently moved away. I take a walk across the property a few times a week just to make it look like there's some activity there while there's no one living there in the house. And I discovered a package at the back door. It was addressed to the right house, but to the wrong name. And this single family home certainly did not have a loft number 108 as part of it. My inner detective pulled out her phone and Googled the information. And after just a few tries, I actually got the right owner of the package on the phone. I explained the situation and we pondered the contents until she finally told me just to open it for her. From her voice, I ascertained at once that she was an older Southern lady. I pulled out this beautiful copy of Be Wild, Be Free, from which our story was told earlier. She said, "Oh, that's the best book in the world. My best friend, gave it to me for my birthday last month. We've been wondering what happened to it." "Listen," she said, "we've already reported it missing weeks ago, and they've already sent me a replacement. So I'd be glad for you to have it. But it kind of needs some explanation before you get into it." Well, now I was excited. Free book plus a backstory? Yes, please. "The watercolors are just beautiful," I said. "I'm always looking for good stories to read with my kids for our church." "No," the grandmother said, almost leaping through the phone. "Don't read it with the kids." And then through her laughter, she said, "This is really not a church book. It's a book about how to act when things get tough." I pondered her words, now extremely curious. I said, "It sounds exactly like the kind of book I'd want to share with my church." "No," "Who?" she shouted again into the phone, laughing out loud. She said, "You kind of have to be a little, what's the word? Progressive." I said, "Have you met a Unitarian Universalist before?" She had not. When I explained that I was in the last stages of training to be a UU minister, she doubled down in her embarrassment until I explained to her that we are an extremely progressive people. And then she told me her backstory. And it was literally a backstory. She had had a terrible accident and came to in an elevator with a nurse wheeling her to see a specialist about her newly broken back. The nurse explained matters to her, and the woman there on the gurney looked up into the nurse's eyes and said, "Oh, you have to understand, for Southern ladies of a certain age, this is just not done." And so, there with her broken back and a stranger rolling her along and on her way to find out if she was paralyzed, she began to apologize for her language. And the nurse said to her, "Honey, is a medical term we use quite a bit around here." And through her panic, the woman saw the genuine care, the complete acceptance of the nurse, and she felt a calm come over her that got her through that experience. And her broken back healed, and she was not paralyzed. And it's 20 years later, and that nurse is her very best friend who sent her the book, as they have this understanding with each other that sometimes you just have to say it exactly like it is, with exactly the right terms, with each situation that might call for them. This month's theme has been imagination. Last month, Revlo and I imagined that we would have an easy time with the theme, what with Biden's inauguration on the horizon and other political gains that are closer to upholding our UU values. We were closing out a year that held the pandemic, the lockdown, the ongoing necessary restrictions, the wildfires, the most harrowing election we'd seen in a while, the isolation, the frustrations. Seems so cathartic to guide this congregation through a well-deserved reprieve into imagination. Instead, we got an insurrection. And then we all held our breath to get through to January 20th. And then we were supposed to feel jubilant. We had imagined our way into a reality that we wanted. But collectively, we didn't feel jubilant. Or we felt jubilant, but only for a short while. We've heard from you that we've felt full-on terrible and couldn't name why. We've wanted to be happy and begin again renewed, but instead we often felt like swearing a lot. We've felt snappy with our beloveds. We've felt unsure of these feelings and how to put our country back together, even with a better leader than we have had. Why are these feelings lingering? Why the hell does it feel this way? I wanted to know. So I called up someone I knew well, who was a full-on Trump supporter. I asked him to help me understand the reasons that the insurrectionists behaved the ways they did. What were they thinking? I was able to ask with genuine curiosity. I was able to withhold judgment in the moment. And so I got an honest response. I chatted with one member of UUCE who is wise in this arena and asked her to think this through with me. I explained the choppy, deeply emotional responses I received to my questions. responses that often broke mid-sentence, mid-thought, and all of which had a deep undercurrent of fear. Fear for themselves and for me and my future and the future bill that we're leaving the children of today. It was a choppy rehashing of alternate facts found on certain news stations. It was, we identified, trauma in action. The constant retelling of the narrative, trying to get it to make sense. This is what trauma looks like. And so how does this person I know well escape this trauma? What are the steps to trauma recovery for him? He has to get out of the traumatic situation. In this case, it would mean totally unplugging from the news source. Then he must rebuild a coherent narrative, start to finish, about what actually happened. And finally, he must rebuild connection to something larger than himself. This was the missing link for me, what was needed for folks who do not think like I do, to get to meet me in the middle. And it appears to be trauma recovery, which brings me to all of us. At the beginning of this service, we showed a video of the singing group Boney M from 1978, a version of a song that's in our hymnal, By the Rivers of Babylon. The song's lyrics come from Psalm number 137 in the Hebrew Bible, known to some as the Old Testament. It tells the story of the Jews' deportation from Jerusalem in 597 BCE to Babylon. After they arrive on the shores of the river Babylon, away from home, they are expected to make beautiful music, and all they wanted to do was weep. For though they had arrived at a place of relative safety, they were still in the trauma of having someone else come into their homeland and behave in ways counter to their values. If you think about the 1,461 days that preceded January 20th, most of us were living in a state of trauma. The year 2020 compounded that trauma in a ridiculous number of ways. We still have the ongoing pandemic of COVID, the ongoing pandemic of racism, and the ongoing pandemic of capitalism at all costs. So no wonder January 20th wasn't magic. It just got us out of the most traumatic situation. We got to unplug from the loudest thing. The next step then in our trauma recovery is to narrate what did happen, to write our laments like the ancient Israelites, to say what's been going wrong. We'll have an opportunity to do that a little later in the service, just after the meditation, which is next. But before we go do that, I want to give you just a little glimpse of hope. Remember, the last thing that we need to do to process our own trauma is to build a connection to something larger than ourselves. And we have this church. We have this faith. We have each other. For now, let us remember, sometimes you have to say things exactly like they are, with exactly the right terms with each situation that might call for them. And so I'll leave you with a little more of Amber Fosse's Gentle Beasts, who tell us the truth in exactly the right way. Oh, do let it out. Expressing emotion is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign you're alive and not a cold, dead fish. I'm pretty cool, and I cry a lot. Let us begin our laments so that we can begin to heal from this trauma. May it be so. During the meditation today, we will sing, we will not sing, we will see, you can sing if you want to. We will see a song 3 times. The first 2 times will be videos. The song is Keep Breathing by Ingrid Michelson. And it has a refrain, all I can do is keep breathing. All we can do is keep breathing. I loved it because in addition to the beautiful message of the words and the way that Ingrid Michelson sings them, the dancer in the first video writes in the comments, this is just a bit of improv. And then he proceeds to dance his heart out in the most amazing way. Talk about imagination. And the second video is the same song again with a troupe of modern dancers expressing with their whole bodies how they've been feeling. Keep breathing as you watch. It's all you can do. Keep breathing. After the first 2 videos, Revlo will then lead you in an exercise about laments. And we'll hear the song again instrumentally to give you some time to sit with it.
To lament is to express deep sorrow, mourning, regret, grief. It's not mere whining or complaining. In a religious context, it can be often in poetry, or it can be in prose, or it's a repetitive word form. There's a lament that I return to again and again, and it's from a minor prophet called Habakkuk. Habakkuk says, how long, Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen? Or cry out to you violence, but you do not save? Why do you make me look at injustice? Why do you tolerate wrongdoing? Destruction and violence are before me. There is strife and conflict abounds. Therefore, the law is paralyzed and justice never prevails. The wicked hem in the righteous so that justice is perverted. We invite you now to take a moment to write your own lament on paper. And if you are willing to share it in the chat, though your written lament may include swear words, we're not able to bleep them out as we did for Jennifer because we're live. Our request is, though you may write them in your lament, that you do not put them in the chat. If lament is not where your heart is this week and you have a joy to share, please feel free to do so. This is what lamentation is about. Our words offered to one another. Keep those lamentations coming. The chat will remain open. But let me offer this. For God answered Habakkuk, and Habakkuk's lamentation with these words. God said to Habakkuk, look at the nations and watch and be utterly amazed. For I'm going to do something in your days that you would not believe, even if you were told. Maybe there is a God who is doing something utterly amazing in this time that we would not believe even if we were told. Or perhaps it's up to us to respond to one another's laments, offering comfort, solace, hope, relief. There is so much to lament that it seems if neither we nor the world can take anymore. But somehow, in some way, life insists on itself, breaks through what would deny it, what would reduce it to meaninglessness. Let us hold one another's lamentations, be immersed in them. And when they have washed over us again and again till they no longer have a hold on us, let us go forth and do something utterly amazing. May it be so. Blessed be.
Everything is Still on Fire by the Reverend Teresa Soto. Everything is still on fire, despite your best efforts. In addition to living, it is clear that, fire or not, you must level up in what it means to thrive. Right now, that means wrestling with the truth in the fact that everything is not your fault. I'm sorry that everything is still on fire. Once hate catches the winds of "not my problem" blow, the blaze is hard to stop. But hard is not impossible. Not yet is different than never. You, in community, have an answer. You have a response to systems of power and control and to the cost of suffering. You and your community are the answer. You're not only a people of flame, but also a people of cold, clear truth. You know both where you fall short and where you flourish and where you still reach. Everything is still on fire, but all is not lost. You remain more nimble than steadfast, more unshakable than swayed by the latest rage. You are here to put out the ravenous flames and heal the world.